Riley Davis and Connor Hope here. A couple of heat check guys helping out sleepers with some game previews, and we'll be talking some Battle for Atlantis, specifically Arkansas and Stanford. This is the last game of the first day of Battle for Atlantis. Tips off at 7:30. Kim Pom currently has the line, I believe, Arkansas by 5. The Hogs are coming in. They just lost a really tough game at home to UNC Greensboro, saw their rankings plummet. I've seen their metrics plummet a little bit too. But Connor, when you look at this matchup, what sticks out to you and what are you looking for out of either team?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to ask me about this matchup 5 days ago, um, people would be talking about it as, oh, this is just a tune-up for Arkansas to face. I believe their side of the bracket has Michigan and Memphis,
Yep.
right? So
Right.
just a tune-up game. Stanford got handled pretty easily by a Santa Clara team that looks like it might be a borderline tournament team, but again, a bubble team handling Stanford, you're looking at it like, okay, Arkansas should get this. Arkansas then faces UNC Greensboro. You see the struggles that it's had on offense specifically in that game. And Stanford's not untalented.
Mm-hmm.
They have the talent. That's why Jared Haas is still there, because he is recruiting the talent for Stanford. So it's just, and they're shooting the ball well. Stanford is, outside of that Santa Clara game. I mean, they're shooting, I think, 38% from three. They have a top 50, I believe, effective field goal percentage. So they have the offensive talent at least. Don't get a lot of offensive boards. That's where I think Arkansas can really hammer them. But the fact that Ken Palm has it, I think, as a 5-point Arkansas win, I haven't seen the line. I'm assuming that it's going to open up around that 4.5, 5 points. To me, is a little bit fishy, and it feels like this should be a trap game for Arkansas. But when everything is pointing in the direction of a close game, I don't know. This could be a huge bounce back for Arkansas in a way that we generally don't see Musselman teams bounce back until February.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think, you mentioned the talent of Stanford and even how it still is. I like the point of it either being a bounce back or a trap. There's one of two ways it can go. Why it feels especially trappy for me is just like Stanford has a ton of shooters. They have Michael Jones, who came in from Davidson, who I think is shooting over 40% right now on a decent volume. Andrei Stojakovic, it's like he's had no issues with the level up in competition, and that was his reputation coming out of high school, and obviously his dad being Peja. And but he's looked like even more than just a shooter too. He's looked really good. Spencer Jones hasn't shot well, but he has, a 4-year track record of being one of the better shooters in the Pac-12. And even looking at that Arkansas UNC Greensboro tape, it seemed like Greensboro got into the lane at will, which is really alarming for an Arkansas team that, historically under Musselman, they've had the athletes to sort of wall off the paint. And they looked a step slow on the rotations when it was like, Greensboro could get a paint touch, kick out to a shooter, and it's a bucket. And I wonder if, I know Jared Bynum has been erratic and up and down throughout his career too, but I wonder if there's a little bit of that they can tap into. And I think with Arkansas, it's just kind of like, what's their goal for this? Is Muss still going to be tinkering with lineups, or is he actually going to play his best players? Because he kind of needs to do that, I think, to even get past this Stanford team.
Yeah, I think he has to kind of set a rotation and go with it in this event as a whole. You can tinker with lineups against maybe some of the other bye games they might have down the road, but outside of that Santa Clara game where they only got the 7 offensive boards, they only shot 33% from three, put up 77 points, which you look at that in a vacuum, looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're averaging over 90 points outside of that, watching that Santa Clara game, where I think part of the issue was that Santa Clara is big and Santa Clara has athletic pieces in their backcourt. Arkansas is the same way. They're, if nothing else, Arkansas will always be an athletic team. And I don't think Stanford has the same level of athleticism throughout its rotation. So if I'm Musselman, I'm setting my rotations for the event. So I'm saying, these are the
Right.
5 starters throughout here's what you can expect your roles to be. And using Stanford really as that jumping off point. Attack the boards, make sure they don't get any second chance opportunities, make life chaotic for their perimeter, make sure that they aren't comfortable shooting the three, because Arkansas should beat them in the paint. I think Stanford really, where they can kill you is if they get hot from deep, they can score 95 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe I came across as too negative on Arkansas. I still think they have much more talent, and clearly Stanford's not a juggernaut by any stretch, especially defensively. I just think there is like a very clear template for the Cardinal to pull off the upset. But I will say, even with noting their shooters and how that, like you noted, they can swing a game with that. Really, since that weird like KZ Akpala year, like 4 or 5 years ago at Stanford, Jared Hass's teams have sort of hemorrhaged 3-pointers. Like they consistently let teams take a lot and they let teams make a lot. And up until when we talked about this on a Heat Check pod, up until this Greensboro game, Arkansas was shooting really well as a team, which was the big question coming into the year. Could they get any 3-point production out of Tremont Mark? Would Caleb Battle get a little more consistent? And would Trevon Brazil be able to pick up where he left off from his shooting when he got injured last year? And it seems like so far the answer to all three of those is yes. Like all three of those guys can be serviceable. L. Ellis is a decent shooter as well, to where, yeah, I think just as easily Arkansas could do that, have that same blueprint of create a paint touch, collapse the defense, kick out, and spray and light Stanford up from three.
Yeah, absolutely. And both these teams play fast. Both these teams can take care of the ball. Stanford, top for what it's worth, is top 25 in terms of their turnover percentage, top 25, 22nd lowest turnover percentage. They just don't turn the ball over, playing at a pretty high rate. So Arkansas getting the turnovers that their defenses have thrived off of in the past. And I
Mm-hmm.
know their defense this year hasn't been forcing them at a high rate, but in the past, Arkansas has done a pretty good job at forcing turnovers on the perimeter. That's not going to happen in this game. This game is
Mm-hmm.
going to be two offenses that need to play clean basketball, and whoever plays it the cleanest is going to win. Arkansas also plays at a really good tempo too. So if I am looking for a game to watch where there's going to be, I think, a lot of scoring, this one promises to be that game. Although we've seen some promising high scoring games, specifically in this first round of the Maui Invitational, that didn't turn out to be as high scoring as
Mm-hmm.
we would have liked. So these MTEs are very touch and go sometimes with the scoring, especially from deep. And like you said, Arkansas needs to beat Stanford from the perimeter.
Yeah, I think, Atlantis is a weird venue. It's in a hotel ballroom that could lead to some less than pretty games that we're hoping for. But yeah, I do have some high hopes that this will be an up and down tilt with a lot of scoring and some underrated uniforms too. I kind of like the crimson for both teams. It's sort of the opposite of that Maui game we saw today of Tennessee and Syracuse with too much orange. I know Greg's been saying that. But yeah, who do you ultimately have in this game? Who are you picking between Arkansas and Stanford?
I think Arkansas wins. I think they get back on track. And for me, the differentiating factor is what we know Arkansas's defense can be. Arkansas's defense under Eric Musselman sometimes takes a while to find its way, but they're chaotic, they're athletic, they're long.
Mm-hmm.
Stanford's defense is not good. They are outside the top 150. They are not a really good rebounding team. So even if both teams struggle to hit shots, Stanford is 289th in offensive rebound percentage and 175th in defense. So they almost need this game to be really efficient on both ends to win. Where
Yep.
Arkansas, if they start missing shots, either them or Stanford, I think Arkansas has the edge. And given the awkwardness of that ballroom, you might see some missed shots, especially early on, as they kind of acclimate themselves to live game action in a ballroom from deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Arkansas can use those long rebounds on threes to get out in transition. and really run up the score early.
Yep. I'm with you. I think Stanford might be able to keep it close for a half. Potent offense, like we've talked about, but ultimately Arkansas has too much talent. And if they can muster any semblance of defense to just make life hard for Stanford in the second half, they have the depth, they have the talent, they definitely have the coaching to run away with it.